Okay, let's see if we can get this done properly tonight with without any tragedies. Some of you may already be aware that I got 20 minutes into the reading last night, or I hadn't even got to the reading part. I'd just been talking, and I will talk again in a moment about what I was talking about. And somehow managed to shut off the broadcast. I don't know how that happened. I didn't find out for 35 minutes after I'd been sitting there reading to myself for a long stretch. So we'll hope we do better tonight. Let me see. See, part of the problem is I have to toggle back and forth to to check on people and see if just to find out if I'm still on the air, which is what happened last night. Again, we still haven't solved this particular problem yet. Anyway, so one of the things that I was talking about last night at the beginning of the reading, before everything went pear-shaped, was that I've been slightly mysterious the last several weeks about what I've been doing with my time. And the reason for that is we're moving. This is not something particularly either Deborah or I want to do, but for a variety of reasons we need to. We are doing our best to hang on to the house. We love our house, but so that's a whole complicated story. But basically, we're going to be spending some time. Don't know how long. It's open-ended at this point. In on the other side of the hill, and we're going to be living there. So we've been packing everything up. You can't really tell in the background here because it's an ungodly mess, and it's always an ungodly mess. But it's actually less of an ungodly mess behind me, in part because we've been clearing things out. You may notice empty bookshelves on this side, which Deborah has done a lot of work on, and a lot of other things that I've been dragging out, and we've been doing that all over the house for weeks. And anyway, I don't want to go into a huge amount of detail about it. It's hard to without lapsing into self-pity for all the stuff that we're having to do and the fact that we're having to do it at all. But it's just the way things are, and so that's what's going on. So anyway, that's the underlying stuff that's been going on the last several weeks, is getting ready to move out to another house, and then we're gonna rent our house here. At least that's the plan. So I think that's kind of that as far as that particular subject matter goes. We are also, I am having to put aside the finishing the book, which was almost finished. It's incredibly frustrating. Once again, something has erupted, in this case, a move, and I'm having to put the book aside for however long this process takes. We're hoping only a couple of more weeks. But as I said, it's very, very frustrating because I was literally in the last final stages of rewrite and editing and all that kind of stuff, and frustration. Anyway, so that's what's been going on around here. So here's the less large news, but the short news. The short news is, if you are somebody who's following the broadcasts or following the readings and actually trying to hear all the reading, don't bother with the last one unless you want to hear at greater length about us moving, because I spent about 18 minutes at the top of the broadcast talking about that. Instead, you can just listen to this one instead, because I'm going to go back and start in the same place, because I didn't find out until I had been reading for a long time that I had lost my signal, or I'd lost my stream. So I'm going to just start in the same place tonight. That means that the previous broadcast is essentially just a placeholder, because there's, I read a little bit of it, but I'm going to read again tonight. So that's the other thing I was going to mention. So anyway, let me just quickly, if I can, check and see who all has popped in and said hello. And of course, I'm just going by the list here. I can't see the comments, but so Chris has checked in. So hello, Chris. That's Chris Vandal. Ron, of course, as always. Good to see you. Kelly. Hello, Kelly. And who else? Isaac and Medardo. Hello, Medardo. And Tim Speckins. Good to see you, Tim. And Rochelle. Oh, that's a new name. Good to see you, Rochelle. Well, no, actually, I've seen Rochelle before, I think. Anyway, doesn't matter. Timothy. Timothy Roberts. Good. Good to see you. Jim Key. Tracy McClatchy. Claudia. Hello, Claudia. Barban, as always. Pleasure. Emily. Good to see you too. Ray. And you, Ray. And Susan Shamblin. Hello. And Michelle Roseberry Cumming. Wow, that is a parcel of names. Good to see you, Michelle. Thank you for joining us. Carl. Hello, Carl Dersham. Good to see you. And some others that have now fallen off the bottom of the list through no fault of their own. Ulrika. No, Ulrich. Ulrich Rausch. Hello, Ulrich. Good to see you. And Angela. I don't think I saw you before. So we've had some folks coming in at the top there. Anyway, it's confusing. So... okay, so tonight I am, as I said, I'm just going to read. I am going to do my best to not screw anything up. And one of the ways I'm going to do that is by trying not to go back and forth too often between the two different applications. I won't explain it. It's all boring stuff. But, and instead I will put some time into reading a little more tonight. So that's where I'm at. We are in full crazy mode and have been for several weeks. I am using the opportunity, that totally unwanted opportunity, but using the opportunity to get rid of as much stuff as possible. Partially because, as many of you know already, my mom died this summer, and while dealing with the emotional effects of that is tough. We've also been essentially clearing out our parents' house, which is where Deb and I are going to be living for a while. And in the process of that, it just became very clear to me that I don't, it's one thing to leave precious family stuff or things that are emotionally significant or whatever, but I just have so much stuff that nobody is ever going to be interested in but me. Hundreds and hundreds of research books that, many of them I've already used and may never ever touch again and things like that. And I don't want to leave all that for my kids to have to sort through someday and have them all carted off or whatever. So I'm going to do as much of that as I can during this move. And if I could only persuade everybody else in the family, but everybody else is always like, oh, but I have to save this, or we can sell this. I'm like, yeah, when? But anyway, that's just me. That's the mode I'm in at the moment, which is just get rid of as much as possible. If you got to move anyway, take the opportunity to clear out and clean house a bit. So that is my news. And of course, as mentioned, the broadcast last night went awry somehow. I'm still not quite exactly sure how that happened, but it definitely did. And so I'm going to go back to the beginning. Excuse me, I'm going to go back to the beginning of where I was going to start reading last night. And I actually have read this first part now twice already, because I read for like half an hour before I realized that I had lost the broadcast. And then I came back and said, oh, well, we've got 10 minutes left after I found out what had happened and started the stream again. And I read for about 10 minutes, and then I suddenly realized this is stupid. I'm going to make somebody, sort through a whole thing just to get 10 minutes of reading. So I'm going to start at the beginning of where I would have started last night. So if you heard me reading anything last night, you're going to hear the first 5 or 10 minutes of it again. So I apologize for that, but it seemed to be a neater solution to the problem. So anything else before I jump in? No, I don't think so. Just in case, let's see if there's anybody else who has shown up that I should say hello to. Nope, looks like I've got everybody already. And that being the case, I am just going to go ahead and read. Somewhere up the line, I'm going to change the way this all works and maybe do pre-recorded readings and then do live question and answer things or something. Anyway, we'll figure it out. But it would be a lot easier not to be trying to do 3 or 4 different things. And back when I actually did broadcasting, which I did for years and years, there was always an engineer. Well, not always, not when I was doing DJ stuff, but there were engineers, somebody watching levels and making sure that the broadcast didn't go offline and things like that. Whereas I'm trying to do it all myself, and I am easily confused by trying to do too many things at once. Anyway, so I am returning to The Secrets of Ordinary Farm. We'll pretend that the last broadcast, or at least the part of it that included reading, did not happen because there wasn't much of it. Tyler and Lucinda have been evacuated. They've actually been kicked out of Ordinary Farm, along with Ragnar, the large Norseman, for getting into trouble with Mrs. Needle, and Gideon, who is kind of under Mrs. Needle's control. The two things that had happened just before that is that Tyler had found Alamu's nest, the dragon's nest, where he had gone in search of the continuous scope, and then Colin, Mrs. Needle's son, found Tyler, and the two of them fought and argued, and then the dragon showed up, and Tyler was barely able to escape. And at the same time that was happening, Lucinda was exploring some very weird things happening near the greenhouse at the back part of Ordinary Farm. And she had been next to a window and inhaled something coming out of a broken glass pane in the deserted greenhouse that had made her really, really, really sick. And so she has been recuperating ever since then, and she's still not very well. And they have wound up at the Carrillo's house. You will remember the Carrillos are the family that lives on the next farm over, and the kids are friends with the Carrillo kids. So that's where we are. So the Carrillos, besides the 3 kids, are Hector and Sylvia, and Sylvia's mother, who they call Grandma Paz, P-A-Z. So that's where we're starting. And Paz is talking to Tyler and her grandson, Steve. Grandma Paz, who had been helping Sylvia Carrillo nurse his sister, crossed herself hurriedly. "Don't say such a thing. You'll bring this susto on yourself." "A susto's kind of like a curse or something," Steve whispered. "It comes from being scared." "As it is, I will have to sweep your sister," said Paz. "You too, maybe." "What does that mean?" Tyler whispered to Steve. "I don't want to be swept." "Don't worry about it. You just lie down and she waves a broom over you. But don't let her near anything bleeding. I fell off the monkey bars at school once and my leg was all bloody and she wanted to put powdered rattlesnake in the cuts." In fact, now that it seemed as if Lucinda was going to be all right, Tyler was beginning to be aware of all his own cuts and bruises from his time in Alamu's nest. Every inch of his body seemed to have been scraped or poked. But Tyler's idea of medicine did not include any kind of poisonous snakes. "So, yeah," he told Steve, "that's really interesting about your grandmother and everything. Maybe I'll just sleep in the front yard tonight." He didn't, of course. In fact, Tyler woke up several times during the night, frightened for his sister. But each time he went out to check on her, she was sleeping more or less peacefully on the couch, with either Grandma Paz or Mrs. Carrillo asleep in Mr. Carrillo's big armchair beside her. At last, sometime before dawn, he was able to fall asleep for good, but his dreams were full of tangles and snags and the sound of something large trying to find him. Tyler stood out in front of the Carrillo's house and stared across the valley, but of course he couldn't see anything of Ordinary Farm from here except the hills that surrounded it. Lucinda, who for the first time in 2 days had felt well enough to get off the couch, stood beside him, wrapped in a blanket even though the day was a hot one. "I'm telling you, there's something in that greenhouse, Tyler. It was like smoke or like, I don't know, but it got into me and it made me sick. You just know that witch is growing poison apples or something in there," Tyler said. "You're lucky you're alive." "It wasn't just poison, though," his sister said, shivering and pulling the blanket closer. "It was like something got inside me, into my head. I can't explain. I can still feel it a little." "Better be careful or Grandma Paz is going to get out her broom again." Tyler squinted. Anyway, you're better now, so forget about it. He picked up a dirt clod and flung it as far as he could. The real problem is Colin Needle. Oh, Tyler, he's not that bad. He turned on her. He is, Lucinda, he is. And he's got the continuous scope. I just know it. Well, that's good, isn't it? She was pale and distracted, still nowhere near her old self. It's been missing a long time, and Uncle Gideon really needs it to look for Grace. Who cares who gets the credit? That's not the point. At least Tyler was pretty certain it wasn't. I don't care about the credit, but don't you understand? Colin has the continuous scope. He can use the fault line. And if his mother gets hold of it, she can use the fault line. They could go back into the past and make it so we were never born. Something at the corner of his eye was distracting him, an odd shape flitting toward them across the pale blue sky. Colin wouldn't do that, Lucinda said. He'll do anything his mother tells him to do. She was probably the one who sent him after it in the first place. He narrowed his eyes against the sun. What is that? For half a moment he almost convinced himself it was Alamu, streaking toward them down the sky like an avenging demon. But although it drew rapidly nearer, the shape did not grow much larger, and his heart began to slow to normal. Then he recognized it. Zaza! He laughed and clapped his hands together as the little creature glided down toward them. Look loose, it's Zaza! That's nice, but I have to go lie down again. She turned and made her way unsteadily back into the house. Tyler hardly noticed her go, because the little winged monkey had landed on him and was climbing around on the top of his head, tugging at his hair and chattering softly, seeming as pleased to see him as he was to see her. Good girl! Hey, good girl! He laughed at the little tickling fingers. Hi, Zaza, what you doing? You came all the way over here, did you? In other times, he would have been terrified that the Carrillos would see. Sylvia and Paz were only a dozen yards away in the kitchen making dinner. But if they hadn't said anything about the Manticore and Alamu, he didn't think they were going to make much of a deal about Zaza. What brings you here, Z? It was strange that the little monkey should come so far to see him when she had hardly spent any time with him at all this summer. The year before they had been almost inseparable, but this time she had stayed away, except when Tyler was out on the edges of the farm. Why would she come to him out by the reptile barn or all the way over here at Cresta Sol, but never call at the window of his room as she used to almost every night? He sat down and let her climb all over him, petting her and playing with her, enjoying the softness of her velvety wings and her funny, inquisitive noises. She looked him in the face and pulled on his nose with her little fingered hands until he began to believe that she wanted him to follow her, maybe even back to the farm. I can't, he said. I got kicked out. But I sure wish you could talk like Lucinda's dragons. I bet you'd tell me what's going on back there. At last, puzzled and a bit distressed, Zaza flung herself into the air, circled Tyler's head once, twice, chattering loudly, and then sped away back toward Ordinary Farm. Okay, Tyler said to the Carrillo kids. What's going on with your folks? It's been 3 days. Why haven't they said anything about what happened? About what happened where? Asked Steve without looking up from his Game Boss screen. Tyler rolled his eyes. Come on, man. Your father was driving the car. We had a manticore chasing us and a dragon on the hood. We almost died. Why haven't they said anything about that? I know, said Carmen. It's scary. It's like it never happened. No, little Alma shook her head, her expression solemn. It happened. You can see it on their faces. They're just not talking to us about it. But why? Carmen flopped down on her bed, bouncing Lucinda, who was resting there in a sleeping bag. Stop, Lucinda groaned. My head hurts. Sorry, but your brother's right. Why haven't they said anything? It's creeping me out. Steve Carrillo stood up. Dude, there's a simple solution. Let's go ask them. They could hear Hector and Sylvia Carrillo arguing in quiet but strained voices as they approached the kitchen.
To deal with it, Hector was saying, it's pretty clear we have to do something. Do something? This was Mrs. Carrillo. What are we supposed to do? You might as well try to do something about a volcano.
Carmen knocked on the closed door. Mom? Dad? What's going on? A moment later, it swung open.
We'll talk to you kids later, Mrs. Carrillo said, peering out. Your father and I are having a discussion about the stuff we want to talk about. So why don't you have the discussion with us?
Mrs. Carrillo stared at the children for a moment.
All right, she said at last. Meet us in the living room. Well, Mr. Carrillo said when they were all settled, as you may have guessed, this business with the Tinker Farm, with those dragons or whatever those things were, didn't come as a complete surprise to your mother and me. Huh? Steve looked stricken. You mean you knew about the farm and the kinds of animals they have there? But how? Carmen asked. Because your great-grandfather knew Octavio and helped to build that farm, said Hector. And there are some other things you haven't.
Suddenly the front door rattled and banged open. Grandma Paz pushed through with 2 hefty bags of groceries, which she deposited on the floor, then turned around and closed the door firmly.
He's coming again, she told them. That man, he was right behind me the whole way in from town.
Hector Carrillo turned to Tyler and Lucinda.
You two, stay out of sight, or he might ask questions, he warned,
then turned to his own offspring.
Go with them. Who are they talking about? Tyler whispered as he and the others pushed down the hallway into Steve's room. Who do you think? Steve told him. That crazy Stillman guy, the billionaire. He comes by every few days.
Tyler heard the doorbell ring and the door open. He was curious. He had never seen Stillman in real life and opened Steve's door just a crack, but he couldn't see anything of the living room. He could hear voices, though, and heard an unfamiliar one say, I find it hard to believe you won't take the market price for this. You won't take twice the market price for this place, Mr. Carrillo.
And I find it hard to believe you won't take no for an answer, said Hector.
They spoke for a minute or so more, but their voices became quieter, and Tyler could make out only a few words. Then the front door was firmly closed.
Why does he keep trying to buy our house, Papa?
Alma asked when they were all back in the living room.
We told him we won't sell it. Because he's the kind of man who thinks he can always get what he wants just by throwing money at it, Hector said, but the lines between his brows deepened. I'm beginning to think he might be right.
Sylvia Carrillo sat on the sofa, pinching the bridge of her nose. Tyler, horrified, looked from one to the other and said, You're not really going to sell to him, Mr. Carrillo, are you? Not to Stillman. He's Uncle Gideon's worst enemy. I don't know what I'm supposed to do if Gideon Goldring won't even talk to me. Hector Carrillo banged his beer down on the little round table. How many times can I beg the man to talk to me? How many times do I have to let him treat me like a dog? But it's not really Gideon's fault, said Lucinda. Everyone turned to look at her. What do you mean? Tyler asked. Lucinda shook her head. I'm not sure, but it's not. I mean, there's something really wrong with him. Grandma Paz chose this moment to emerge from the kitchen with a glass of tomato juice and plop herself down on the couch next to her daughter. So, she asked, have you and Hector told them about La Mina Frecuentada yet? Mother! Sylvia Carrillo almost screamed it. Whoa, doesn't that mean ghost mine or something? Asked Steve. Sounds like an amusement park ride. What are you talking about? Nothing, said his father sternly. Your grandmother just likes to tell crazy old stories. He gave Paz a very hard look. It's her age. Sylvia stood up, an expression of pain and weariness on her face. Enough for tonight, she said.
Have you all forgotten about the evening milking? The cows must be full to bursting. It's time for work. We'll finish this later." But she looked as if she hoped they would never, ever return to that particular subject. Okay, chapter 24, Mr. Koto's letter. All right, good. We seem to still be running. I have no faith in my own ability to keep this thing live. So anyway, please let me know if anything actually happens to the stream. So I'm assuming at the moment that we're okay. Chapter 24, Mr. Koto's letter. Days passed at Cresta Sol without anything changing. July turned into August. The end of their summer vacation loomed, and still Lucinda and Tyler remained banished from their great-uncle's house and land. Ragnar met with Mr. Walkwell at the Cresta Sol property line every few days, but according to the ancient Greek, things had not improved. Gideon Goldring was still sickly and still doing pretty much whatever Mrs. Needle told him. She did not even allow the exiles' names to be mentioned in Gideon's presence. Ragnar slept in the Carrillo's dairy barn and helped Hector and Sylvia with the farm. Lucinda and Tyler hung around with the kids. It was fun to have time with Carmen and the others, but Lucinda was beginning to feel like the old ordinary farm had been a dream, and now they had woken up. "I could have been spending all this time getting to know Desta, learning how to really talk with the dragons," Lucinda thought. "Is anyone giving her carrots? She enjoys them so much. Haneb must be so busy with us gone, especially Ragnar gone. Will he have time to pay her some extra attention?" Tyler flopped down beside her. He looked around the empty living room as if there might be spies hiding behind the sofa cushions, but it was late afternoon and everyone was out of the house doing chores or running errands. "Grandma Paws, she knows a lot more than she's telling," he said in a dramatic voice. "What?" Okay. All right, it's just told me. Now, I didn't do anything. I did not touch anything. Okay, so you guys can still. So right now, as I'm speaking, okay, now it says it's live again. That is so weird. Okay, that's nothing to do with anything on this end at all. Okay, so it is lying. It just came up and said live broadcast has just ended. I guess maybe it's just fluctuations in the stream, and it sometimes says it's off. I don't know. Okay, I am going to continue, and I am going to just continue reading and assume that it's okay. It says it's live. Apparently it just has problems sometimes with the strength of the stream, and at that point it says the live broadcast just ended. Okay, I'm going to continue reading, so pay no attention. I continue from where I continue. Tyler, I'm going back to like a half a paragraph here. Tyler flopped down beside her. He looked around the empty living room as if there might be spies hiding behind the sofa cushions, but it was late afternoon and everyone was out of the house doing chores or running errands. "Grandma Paz, she knows a lot more than she's telling," he said in a dramatic voice. "Well, duh," What does that mean?
Lucinda sat up carefully. Her head sometimes still pounded if she moved too quickly, but otherwise she was feeling better, although she still had no idea what had happened to her that day in the garden.
Everybody around here knows more than they're telling, except us kids. That's the whole point. The place is full of secrets. Well, I'm going to find out what she's hiding. You can tell she's dying to tell somebody.
Lucinda sighed loudly.
And then what? You'll ride Elliot the sea serpent up Coomish Creek throwing hand grenades until Colin Needle and his mother surrender? What is your problem? Why are you being like this, Luce?
Tears came into her eyes.
Because I'm tired of listening to you talking about all the things we're supposed to be doing when we're helpless. I wish we'd never learned about this stupid place. It's all been just trouble and scary, dangerous things. I want to go home.
Tyler stared at her as if she'd announced she didn't want to have Christmas anymore.
You're crazy, Luce. Well, I'm tired, she said, and I still feel lousy. But you're totally in love with those dragons. You don't get it, Tyler. I don't care anymore. It's too hard. Even the grown-ups can't make this work. What are we supposed to do? We're kids. But the grown-ups can't make things work because they're grown-ups, Tyler shouted.
Lucinda rolled her eyes and said,
I'm going to go take a nap.
Tyler followed her down the hall to Carmen's room. He was angry now, too.
So you're just going to give up? We've got a few days of our summer left. That's all. And you want to let the Needles have the farm and all the animals and do whatever they want while we go back home? While we go back to school? What else can we do?
Lucinda knew she was being hard on her younger brother. He wasn't feeling ill like she was, so of course he was frustrated. But she really did feel exhausted. Whatever had caused the strange fever was not entirely gone. Suddenly, it was all she could do to stumble to her bed. When Lucinda woke up, it was mid-afternoon. The sheet stuck to her sweaty skin, and the air in the Carrillo's house was hot and close. She wanted to take a shower, but she needed fresh things to put on afterward, or getting clean was pointless. She rummaged through her jumbled suitcase for unworn socks and underwear until she had emptied it completely, but she still couldn't find anything clean. Because she had been sick, she had let everything go, but now it seemed she would either have to find out how to use Sylvia's washing machine or just wear dirty stuff. She began to search through the suitcase's various zipper pockets, hoping a clean pair of underpants might have strayed into one of them somehow. To her surprise, she found something in one of them, but it wasn't underwear. She lifted out an old yellowed envelope with a Madagascar postmark. It was one of the letters she had been holding when Mrs. Needle burst into her room their first night back on the farm, the night Tyler found the box mailed to Grace Goldring. Lucinda had tried to gather up all the letters when Mrs. Needle came in, but several had fallen onto the floor. This one must have gone under the bed or something, and Pema and Azinza had found it when they were packing her suitcase and just stuck it in. She climbed onto the bed. The envelope was still sealed. The letter had never been opened, and Grace had never read it, which was a strange thing to think about. Did the person who wrote it wonder why she had never replied? Lucinda couldn't help wondering what Dr. Grace Goldring had really been like. In all those pictures in the memorial parlor, she looked very calm, very pretty, very smart, exactly the kind of woman Lucinda wanted to grow up to be. Now, here in Lucinda's hands was an unopened letter addressed to the woman, sent from half a world away in a box of biological specimens from Madagascar. She held it up to the light to read the now faint handwriting. 13 July, 1989, it said, sent by someone named Fabienne Coto. Her heart beating faster, she slit the envelope carefully with scissors from Carmen's well-organized desktop and pulled out the yellowing paper. The letter was printed, but looked old enough and strange enough that she guessed it had been written on a typewriter. Dear Dr. Goldring, I send you my best wishes.
The weather here has been good. Antananarivo is a very pretty place in the spring, and I hope you and Gideon will come here some day. It would be a great pleasure to show you around. In the meantime, I send you the fruits of my last trip to the market. The Cameleo belalandensis would have been a much more exciting find if it was still living, but even the dead ones are seldom seen these days, and this is well dry, and I think not too unpleasant. You were right that it is the people of the southwestern coasts that come across the strangest discoveries, things often found floating on logs or root system rafts. I am not sure I understand your argument as to why that precise spot at Moramboke should prove such a nexus for biological oddities and events, but I am very happy to report the fruits of my success. That is to say, I indeed found myself overwhelmed by the diversity of new botanical specimens, and am herewith sending many back to you. I have a funny feeling they are not all Madagascan. Sorting through and understanding what we have here will take time and study. However, I do wish to draw your attention to the prize of the group, as far as I am able to tell. It is a fungus, completely unlike anything I have ever known. I have included a small piece for you, but in the safety of a glass tube. Again, it is not native to Madagascar, but enough have landed on the shores over the years that the Mikea tribes have incorporated it into their myths, naming it what is best translated as Call-You spirit plant. Their tales claim that the thing is something like the sirens or Loreleis of the esteemed ancient poet Homer. Many tribal stories tell of people summoned to die by the Call-You fungus, and how they are helpless to fight against it, as if their will was no longer their own. My tests suggest it is simply a fungus, although a highly complex one. Anyway, I send it to you, learned Dr. Goldring, with the hope you may find it as interesting as I did. The letter was signed, Your friend and colleague Fabien Coteau. Lucinda put the letter down, her heart beating wildly. An entire box of rare and unknown specimens had been sent to Ordinary Farm, to Gideon's wife Grace, a scholar and a scientist trusted with the handling of rare and possibly dangerous specimens. But instead they had been hidden away for 20 years, and now had fallen into the hands of Patience Needle. Had the specimens been labeled? Lucinda knew that Mrs. Needle and her son, unlike the rest of the farm's workers, actually knew how to use a computer. Had Mrs. Needle been able to find out something about the dangerous secrets that had been lurking in that box all these years? Had she decided to grow some of them? Several things clicked into place in Lucinda's mind all at the same time. On the night they found the box, Tyler had said the tubes were full of seeds and bits of plants. Mrs. Needle loved things like that. She was an expert in these things, botany, herbology, and the logical place to try to grow unknown tropical species would be the old greenhouse. And if the witch was going to plant one of these weird specimens, which one would she want to grow? Lucinda knew the answer to that one, too. Many tribal stories tell of people summoned to die by the Call-You fungus, Fabien Coteau had written, and how they are helpless to fight against it, as if their will was no longer their own. Those spores! It must have been the Call-You that I breathed at the greenhouse, she realized. I'm so lucky I only got a tiny bit. And what better way to control someone's mind than with the mysterious Call-You, which even most doctors would never have heard of? What better way to make sure that Gideon Goldring behaved the way Mrs. Needle wanted him to behave? And what better time to do it than just as he was about to change his will, to leave Lucinda and Tyler the farm? And once the witch is certain she's figured out how to use it, she could use it on anyone. Or on everyone. Then it wouldn't just be mice and birds and bugs dying outside the greenhouse, pulled helplessly by the call-you. It would be any victim Mrs. Needle chose. The thought of what had almost got her, and what was probably still lurking inside her, made Lucinda feel ill all over again. Chapter 25, Valley of the Whirlwind. "We have to do something, Luce," said Tyler before he had even finished reading Fabienne Coteau's letter. "This is terrible. Colin's got the continuoscope and his mom's brainwashing Gideon with some kind of zombie mushroom. We have to get back to the farm." "What good would that do?" Lucinda shook her head. "As long as she's got Gideon under control, she can just throw us out. She can have us arrested for trespassing if she wants to. She could claim we stole something." "They can't arrest us without calling the police. They're not going to do that," Tyler said. "The Needles don't want strangers on the property any more than Gideon did." "I don't know. We have to talk to Ragnar about this." "He's not here, Luce. He snuck back over to the farm to help Mr. Walkwell with the unicorns. A lot of them are sick." His sister frowned. "Wow, maybe it's because of that fungus. I mean, if it poisoned all those birds and bugs in the garden." Tyler waved his hand. "It doesn't matter now. We can't wait any longer. We have to do something." "No, we can't do anything until we figure out what it is we should do," Lucinda said. Tyler sighed and shook his head. His sister just didn't get it. "If you don't want to get involved," he told her, "then just leave it to me." Grandma Paz was in the yard behind the house when he found her, throwing out food for the chickens from a plastic bin. "Layer food, it's called," she told him, as if he had asked. "Nothing to do with layer cake. It means like laying eggs." The little old lady, Tyler was beginning to discover, liked to tell stories about everything, not just ordinary farm. At dinner, she would often share long and occasionally funny tales about one of her relatives getting into trouble or making an embarrassing mistake. Sometimes she even talked about her Indian grandmother and the more distant past, but she never said anything about the stuff Tyler really wanted to hear, and he had been waiting for a chance to talk to her on his own. He followed her around the yard as she scattered the chicken feed, which pretty much looked like ordinary birdseed to Tyler. "In Australia, they call them chooks," Paz said, exactly as if he'd asked that, too. The birds scuttled after her, heads bobbing, making happy little purple, purple, purple noises in their throats. Tyler took a breath. The other night, you said something about a haunted mine?" "Oh, you heard that, did you? I was wondering when one of you would ask. You are the one who always wants to know, aren't you? You must get in lots of trouble." She laughed. Tyler did his best to share her amusement. "Yeah, I guess that's me. Is there really a place like that around here?" Ever since he had heard the phrase, he had been thinking about it. It sure sounded a lot like the fault line. And if anyone around here had made it clear they knew some strange things about ordinary farm, it was Grandma Paz. "La mina frecuentada. That's what my father and mi abuelo used to call it. Stephen is right. It means the haunted mine. But they didn't go there. Too many stories. The whole place had too many stories." "Like what?" Tyler thought. Tyler hoped he didn't sound too interested. That was a sure way to scare off a grown-up. They started thinking, what if this kid gets into trouble? It'll be my fault. Then they clammed right up. "Ghost stories?" "Sometimes." She was halfway around the pen now, the hens and chickens crowding along the fence near her feet, like tourists looking up at a plump Statue of Liberty. "All kinds of things, child. Monsters. These hills have had stories since long before my abuela's day. I told you about the Indian man who found the land of the dead, right?" Tyler remembered well, but it was rare to get her alone and talking. "Tell me again." play with me, boy. I told you once, that's enough. He went back to bring his dead wife and made it all the way to the place of the spirits. That was in these same hills, Las Lomas Embrujadas, the old folks called them when I was a girl, the witching hills. Witching hills? She straightened up. Tyler hadn't really started to get tall yet, but he could easily look her in the eye. It was hard just now, though, because she was staring at him like he had called her a name. I said, don't play with me, boy. You know about these things. I can tell by how you look, how you listen, the questions you ask. You have the same look as old Octavio when he first came. You knew Octavio Tinker? Knew him? My family built most of that crazy house of his. I was a young woman when Octavio first came, so I remember him very well, yes. He was always asking my grandmother for stories like you asked me. Her people were from the Yadanchi tribe, but I told you that already too. She smiled again. Yes, you are a lot like him. You even look a little like him. He loved that name, Las Lomas Embrujadas. And just like this rich ladrón, Stillman, Octavio wanted to buy the old mine and the land around it to add to what he had already bought. But my grandfather wouldn't sell. No. Ha! Tyler had already started to ask another question when he suddenly realized what Grandma Paz had said. Hang on. Octavio wanted to buy the mine from your grandfather? You mean the haunted mine you were talking about? That's what they called it, yes. I didn't say it really was haunted. She frowned as if wishing she hadn't started the conversation. But way back then, my grandfather let some men dig there for silver. He didn't sell the mine to them. He just, how you say, leased it. But those men didn't stay long. She laughed. No, not long at all. That's where it got the name. They were scared, like rabbits. Never came back. Tyler shook his head in confusion. Wait, you mean there's a piece of land here, on this property, that has a haunted mine? A place where people see ghosts? They used to. Nobody goes there anymore. Too dangerous. She nodded. And not just ghosts, all kinds of things. Magic animals. She shuddered and crossed herself. But you're saying it's on your property? Not ours? I mean, Uncle Gideon's? It sounded like she was talking about the fault line. He couldn't make sense of it. Grandma Paz stared at him again. You've been here 2 summers, and you still don't know which are the magic hills? She pointed away from Ordinary Farm to a line of hills some miles away to the west, blanketed in purple and brown shadows as the sun sank behind them. Those are Las Lomas Embrujadas, she said, and down at the bottom of the biggest one is the place they tried to make their mine. But I thought all the magic places like that were on our farm. You always say what a dangerous place it is. It is. Where you live, Valle del Torbellino is called, Valley of the Whirlwind. My grandmother's people said that in the old days. Whirlwind broke open the ground there to find his lost son, and that was how the opening was made into the land of the spirits. So you have an opening like that on your land too? Then why did you say all those bad things about Ordinary Farm? She shook her head in disgust. Octavio's land, Gideon's land, is very bad all over. Our land here is fine as far as you can see. Only out there in the north, she pointed to the distant hills, are there bad things. We don't go there, so no problem. The cows are happy, the milk is sweet, and the ghosts don't bother us. That is why we live here. That is why I would never live where you live. She nodded her head as if she had proved a difficult and unlikely mathematical theory. Tyler turned to head back to the house, his head full of complicated and confusing thoughts. "Don't step in the chicken poop," Paz cackled. So the Carrillos have had haunted tunnels in their hills all along. A sudden thought made him stop and hold his breath. He was so stunned by the idea that the world around him seemed to have suddenly gone silent. Does that mean that their haunted mine is connected to the fault line somehow? Underground? Which would mean it's connected to Ordinary Farm, too. That put everything in a different light. Everything. The haunted mine, the witching hills, what had Paz called it? The Valley of the Whirlwind? The whole place is weird. The whole valley. If Octavio didn't want outside attention, it's no wonder he started calling these places things like Standard Valley and Ordinary Farm. Because this place had never been ordinary. Okay, we're going to start at least one more chapter here. We'll see how far we get. Chapter 26, Beasts and Baloney. In the evenings, after dinner, Lucinda liked to lie on her air mattress in Carmen's room and listen to the warblers and bluebirds flitting through the trees that shaded the Carrillos' backyard. Their chiming songs soothed her and reminded her that although she might not be where she wanted to be, on Ordinary Farm, she was still in a very nice place, surrounded by friends like Carmen and Alma and the rest of their family. But today the birds were silent, as if the distant thunder that had begun half an hour ago had frightened them away. "What, another storm?" Carmen looked up from the laptop she had to share with her brother and sister, the subject of much power struggling among the three Carrillo kids. "This has been the wettest summer in, like, forever." "It never rains very hard," said Alma. Carmen's little sister was stretched out on the floor, drawing with crayons. "And it smells so good afterward. Like growing." "As long as I don't have to go out in it," Carmen frowned. "Speaking of annoying things, where did Steve and your brother go, Lucinda? They ran off after dinner while they were still chewing." Lucinda made a face. "I think they're doing something in the garage. Last time I went past, I heard a lot of banging and clattering." "Building a spaceship out of old drink cans, probably," Carmen said. "No," Alma corrected her. "I think Steve said they were getting stuff together to—" She paused and looked up as the door of her room opened. Sylvia Carrillo leaned in. "Carmen, mija, your father and I promised we'd go have some dessert with the Sotos. We'll be back about 9:30, but if we're not, I want you getting ready for bed then, and you can read till we get here, okay? Grandma Paz is in her room watching television if you need her." She shut the door, and a moment later they heard the front door open and close. Lucinda had been trying to read, but she was feeling distracted. Maybe it was the smell and feel of the coming storm, but she hadn't been having much luck with the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe anyway. Those kids were in a magical place too, but everything seemed to come pretty easy to them. And when things got bad, the wonderful Jesus Lion, as Carmen called him, always showed up and fixed things. "I wish we had a magic Jesus Lion," Lucinda thought. "I'm tired of trying to figure out all the answers by ourselves." Mr. Walkwell wasn't Aslan, of course, but he was the closest thing they were going to get. After all, Lucinda thought, he was practically a Greek god. From what she'd learned on the internet and in books, it seemed he was a faun, a kind of Greek forest spirit. But every time she thought she had worked up the courage to ask him more about his background, one look at his weathered face and his dark, watchful eyes made the words clog in her throat like lumpy porridge. There was so much she would have liked to ask him. Were the gods real? Had there really been a Hercules? And a Jason and the Argonauts, like that funny old movie Tyler loved so much? But this afternoon, as she had stood with Ragnar at the fence between Cresta Sol and Ordinary Farm, she didn't even consider asking him. There were far too many other things to think about. Serious things. Life and death things. "You should not risk coming back, Ragnar," Mr. Walkwell said. Here at the edge of the property, and in broad daylight, he was wearing boots to hide his hoofed feet, and he was plainly uncomfortable. He shifted from one leg to the other as they spoke, the stuffing that made the shoes fit crinkling and crackling. At the moment, things are no worse with either Gideon or the witch. We should try to keep them that way. Ragnar shook his head. But Simos, look at you. You are exhausted. You did the work of 10 men even when I was there. Mr. Walkwell snorted. So, now I do the work of 10 and a half. I will manage. Ragnar smiled at the joke, but Lucinda knew he didn't approve of Mr. Walkwell taking on so much. I have never seen him this way, the Norseman had told her that morning. He almost seems old. Which was a strange thing to say, considering Mr. Walkwell must have been around it for at least a couple of 1,000 years. But now, looking at the old Greek's bony face and dark-ringed eyes, she understood Ragnar's concern. It is not me who needs your pity, Mr. Walkwell told them. Every time the witch brings Gideon out to have him give orders, he seems slower, weaker, and more stupid, like a tree that does not get enough water. I fear for him. The idea of her great-uncle growing sicker and sicker at Mrs. Needle's hands made Lucinda's heart race with fear. It's the greenhouse. I know there's something in there. I can give you the letter I found if you want to see it. There's something really bad in there, and I'm sure it's what Mrs. Needle is using to control Uncle Gideon. Mr. Walkwell only looked at her, not as though he didn't believe her, but as if it didn't matter. Ragnar shook his head sadly. If I could simply break the witch's neck, I would, the Norseman said. But the gods only know whether we would ever get Gideon back afterward. The same if we simply took him away from her. As long as he is in her power, she knows we dare not do anything. Ragnar speaks the truth, child, Mr. Walkwell told her. But what about the thing that got Gideon and me? I will not let anyone go near the greenhouse. That you need not fear. Mr. Walkwell turned to look over his shoulder, back toward Ordinary Farm. The wind was changing. Even Lucinda could feel that. Another storm coming, he sighed. By Olympus, what next? That settles it, Ragnar said. I am coming with you. The sick animals will have to be penned. You cannot get it done in time on your own. The big man vaulted the fence with the ease of someone a quarter of his age. I know it is hard for you to wait, Lucinda, but I will come back this evening and tell you everything I have seen. Go back to the house now. This storm may bring lightning. Will bring lightning, said Mr. Walkwell darkly. And only the Moire, only the fates themselves, can say what else will come with it. And that is where we're going to stop, because that's a little stopping place before the chapter continues. So we seem to have made it through the broadcast despite the panic and false alarm of it telling me that the broadcast had stopped. We appear to have made it through, which is a good thing. And I need some good news, God knows, in the midst of all this other nonsense and silliness. Excuse me. So, with that, I say to you that I am going to wrap it up for the night. One of the things I was saying last night in my abbreviated and somewhat completely disrupted reading was that I don't know exactly what's going to be going on in the next few weeks. I think I will probably be reading as per usual next weekend, same times. But it is always a good idea to check on one of my Facebook pages where I will post each week, usually on Saturday during the day, that I will be doing the readings. And there will probably come a time, almost certainly in the next month or so, when we have moved over, but I don't yet know for certain whether we have the facilities up and running for me to do reading. So again, things may get kind of dicey.
dicey over the next few weeks. So that being the case, keep checking in. I will let people know what I'm planning to do. There's Lily makes an appearance. So with that, I thank you for your kind attention, and I appreciate your company. And I will be almost certainly back next week. And then after that point, it will be a little strange for a while, and we'll have to kind of go on a week by week basis. But I will almost certainly be back next week to do the reading at the regular time. So until that point, take good care of yourselves, take good care of your friends and loved ones. I will do my best to do the same on this end, and somehow we will all struggle through. We will muddle through together. I am convinced of that. So once more, thank you very much, and I will see you very soon. Peace. Be good.